Welcome to the Friendly Fire Show, episode 135. It's for the first week of April. I'm really bad with dates, probably the 2nd of April. I'm Steve from Stevivor.
I'm Ben from Stevivor.
And that's it. That's all that will ever be. We're never having a guest, Ben. We're not good enough. That's
fine. Let's just move right along then. We've accepted it.
Good.
We're here.
Done. What have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing nothing new since our last show. So, what have you been playing?
A lot of stuff that I don't care a lot for in various ways and shapes. I want to start talking about Yoshi's Crafted World because you've played the demo.
Yoshi? I've heard of Yoshi before. I've never heard of Yoshi anyway.
That one.
Move it along.
I would like to talk about that one.
I have played the demo.
What did you think of it from the demo?
Well, you can't really gather that much. A lot of people complain that it was a little bit too easy. You can't really pick that up from the demo because it's such a short level, but, you know, I liked it. It's a cutesy game. It's very Nintendo. It's an SD-only game, which is an odd choice at this point in the generation.
Cutesy is a really good way to put it. It's overly cute for no real reason. I guess that's the whole point of it. It's used to be like Woolen World, and now it's Crafted World, so it's Papercraft, and it's Yoshi, and that's what you get. But, yeah, it's very easy for about the first 3/4 of the entire game. And then there's some kind of neat levels where they put like Japanese paper doors in front of the screen. So you're scrolling from left to right. And you can't see where you're actually going for a bit of that. Like there's some cool challenges in there, but it feels like they're few and far between. And mostly it's just kind of Nintendo phoning it in, essentially.
Well, it's been their kind
of a shame.
Filler game for a while, probably since Yoshi's Island on the SNES, which is great. And I actually played it on the classic mini console only last year, and I made a joke on Twitter that it was my game of the year because it's actually really good. But since then, Yoshi's kind of been Nintendo's fill-in game. It's kind of, we need something here, and they've always been different. I think there were some touch-only ones on DS, if I recall. And then you're right, they became a yarn thing. And they were still good games, but I think they kind of keep getting easier with each one forward. And Nintendo knows it's their filler game. Like, you know, they're not putting it out there to be a Game of the Year contender. They know it's just kind of filling a gap.
Yeah.
It does it okay.
Like, competent is not like the best thing you could say about a game, really.
Like,
it's a game. It does its thing.
It'll be best remembered as Nintendo's, I think, first Unity game. I don't think they've had any before this, so
I think you're right. But it kind of it maybe shows why they don't have it as a platform and engine of choice, because you're right, it's not HD by any stretch of the imagination. There's this kind of 2.5D setup where you're on the main path and you can either go to the foreground or the background of the game. But whenever you're in one of those three kind of lanes, things to the front and back just look muddy and cloudy and gross.
It looks horrible.
Like Switch just can't kind of compete with the likes of a current gen system, and does its best, and they kind of use some trickery here. It always runs at 60 frames a second, which is great, but it's just really kind of soft and fuzzy otherwise.
Well, they're purposely using a blur for the background, which is to hide that effect. But when you move from the foreground to the background, you can't hide it anymore. And yeah, it actually looked jarringly bad to me. Like I was kind of put off.
Once you notice it, you can't not see it, and it kind of ruins it for you from there on in. And it's a shame because it's really pretty and stuff, and it's Nintendo, you know, doing that on purpose, and kind of they've done that with other games and other consoles that they have that aren't quite up to scratch with
not to this level though
gen of the time. But
like most of their games are bright and colorful and they look great, and they have some rough edges, but you kind of don't notice that because the colors detract from it, and it's still really stylish. Yeah. But they're all on Switch HD. They're all hitting 720 at some point. This isn't in handheld or docked mode. It's below. So we actually, you know, it's not a joke that it's not HD. It's officially not. So almost could run on a Wii in terms of resolution. It's only just above 480. I think it's 5 something or other.
Pretty much. But I guess the good thing is if you play it in handheld mode, it's not as noticeable. So I guess don't play on your TV if you really want to play it and don't have that kind of issue as you're playing.
Hmm.
It's really not as noticeable handheld, but I guess that's the same for any game, really. It's so much smaller.
Yeah,
lose some of that detail.
That's the Switch's thing. Let's look great in handheld mode, and we don't need to go as hard as the docked mode version. So it's interesting what they'll do moving forward in terms of that split.
There you go. If you like Yoshi games, or you have children, it's hard not to kind of recommend, but it's still just kind of more of the same, really. So
it is interesting that
for a ringing endorsement.
Well, the March games, you've got Yoshi on this super easy side of the spectrum, but then you've got Sekiro on the other, and they're the only two games I'm seeing people talk about at the moment, really. People saying Yoshi's too easy, and Nintendo should have told us that, and other people saying Sekiro's too hard, and they should have told us that. Like, what did you people expect? That's what you get from these two things.
I played about 10 minutes of Sekiro, and that was 11 minutes more than I needed to know that I am not good at Sekiro and shouldn't play Sekiro. So I think that's as much as we're going to say about that game.
Yeah.
Something that I've been playing and been in a real love-hate relationship with is Generation Zero. I don't know if you know, excuse me, much about it, but it's kind of like a side project game by Avalanche Studios. So while they are making Rage 2 and they were making Just Cause 4, there was like a really small team at Avalanche who were making this. And it's an open world adventure, not a survival game. It's not really a survival game, but it's like an action adventure game with some survival elements, but not the shitty ones where you need to like drink water and stuff. Anyway, it's an open world game set in 1980s Sweden. And you are one or a group of teenagers, because you can play in co-op, and you come back to the islands of Sweden and you find that it's been taken over by nefarious evil robot machine things. And from there on in, it basically plays like a Fallout 3, but not set in a post-apocalyptic world, that's been cleansed by nuclear fire, but kind of just a world under siege. It's like Tomorrow Where the War Began, but with robots. Is that a good way to put it for Australians?
Well, I've only played 45 minutes of this game. Being the professional show we are, I put in a little bit of time to see what this game was. Like the Yoshi demo, I just phone in 20 minutes and I get the gist of it.
There you go. So how was my
you've
setup?
Nailed it. Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I'm a bit lost as to what I'm meant to be doing. Like, I find the objective markers aren't great.
They're shite.
And weirdly, like, I got a gun pretty early on, and I got a bunch of ammo, and I was like, I guess this ammo doesn't go with this gun because it's not giving me any in there. I had to go in the menu and, like, say, assign to this weapon. Why wasn't that a default thing? Anyway.
I don't know, but it took me a lot longer than you to figure that out. I don't know if you've realized you have a flashlight yet, but that comes in.
Yeah, I got that. I found it on a table
important.
somewhere.
I missed that tooltip. So I went through 4 bunkers that were pitch black, and I was finding emergency flares, which you're supposed to use to like lure enemy robots away from things you want to get to if you want to stealth it. And I was just firing those off so they provided enough light so I could stumble around in the dark and find like a power switch to turn on the power for the bunker. I did that 4 or 5 different times before I realized I could click down on the right stick and just turn on a flashlight. So I'm stupid. Apparently that's not as hard to figure out as I thought, but you're right in that it doesn't give you a lot of direction, which after probably 15 to 20 hours, I'm actually really enjoying about the game. But I get when you're not used to it, how annoying it could be. And I don't think Avalanche has done a very good job with the way that they've kind of directed quests. And also, put markers down in the world. So if you're going through this giant bunker and you need to find a single piece of paper, it might make it a little bit easier for you to do that at some point.
Well, I'm coming in from The Division, which gives you too much information and points you in the right direction probably too much of the time. So it's too hard to go back to this. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. It says find a farm or something. Okay, great. Where's that? Like, it could be anywhere.
Yeah, basically. So you're either meant to stumble around until you actually like happen to, find the farm. Sometimes they do have like maps and stuff that you can kind of look at and get a reasonable idea of what's going on. But yeah, it doesn't help you a lot. And that's where I've kind of resorted, to either posting location hints for people on Reddit or going and looking at what they've said as well. And it's that kind of thing that really reminds me of Fallout 3. So it was kind of sort of back when the internet was still new-ish. And there weren't obviously as many resources to go and find, but I kind of felt like I was playing Fallout 3 way back in the day with other people and kind of figuring out secrets and locations and stuff with other people who were eager in playing, and kind of just felt like this weird sense of camaraderie with it. So I like that about it. But at times in this game, it's just because things are so poorly designed, you need to kind of work with people and say, I just happened to stumble upon this. Maybe it will help you.
And yet still better than Fallout 76. So
massively. And the other thing that I've really struggled with in the game is that I'll just randomly fall through the world at points, or a quest won't quite finish off the way it's supposed to, or a quest won't kick off the way it's supposed to, so the rest of the quest you can't actually do. Like, that to me was very Fallout 3, especially with the DLC. When the DLC came out, you basically knew for a month or so it was going to be broken, so you shouldn't either worry about playing it so much, or you should just play with that in mind. Like, this is going to be a pretty weird experience until they, iron out the bugs. And it's a shame it's come out when it has, because I don't want to forgive something like Fallout 76 for this type of issue, but because it's Avalanche and it's like a small team, and I basically met like a handful of them when they came to E3 last year. Like, I know how small the team was. I know what their aspirations are, and I know that they've achieved quite a bit, just with what they had. I will overlook the bugs because of that. I don't think that's a thing I should be doing at this point. I should be, either a game is ready to be launched and it launches, or what are you doing?
It's still got to be a complete game. Like, falling through the world and missions not completing is a big problem. Like,
yeah,
it needs to be ready to play.
And they're sort of responding to people using Reddit and using their own website and stuff, but not as much as I would like. So I still like the idea of the game. I still can't stop playing it. I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm just kind of, if there's a excuse me, if there's a quest that I can't finish, I'm just going back to it later in hopes that it will work. And there's a giant map to explore, so it's not like you're ever left without anything to do. And if for some reason you have kind of finished all the quests that you possibly can, you literally just have to set off in a direction, and you'll find a new settlement with a new kind of mission giver device inside of it. So there's tons of stuff to do. I like it. It's one of those weird ones where it's hard to recommend unless you know exactly what you're getting into. And if you think that fits your play style, then go for it.
Well, you haven't sold me, so I don't know if I'll go back. It's interesting, but yeah, it's a bit too glitchy for me. I don't think I have the time to invest in this another giant game like this. I'm giving it to The Division. I don't know if I can do it to another game so soon. Not a great time to launch in hindsight.
Fair enough. I have played Assassin's Creed 3, but I don't really want to talk about that. It's Assassin's Creed 3. I think we've all played it, or have not played it because we had no interest in, you either like it or you don't. It's HD-ified. Unless
4K.
you have any questions.
No, I have
4K.
no questions. I played it many years ago. I didn't mind it, actually. I know a lot of people didn't like it and said it was the Assassin's Creed they didn't like. So it'd be interesting, 6-7 years later, if people are kind of into it now, but probably not, because we've overhauled so many mechanics. It's probably hard to go back to that older style.
Yeah, well, like I said, I didn't want to talk about it, and here we go. It did a lot of things good in that, like, it was the actual game that, did the naval combat thing that led to Black Flag. It wasn't Black Flag that randomly just was the naval game. So we have 3 to thank for that. But it was that game where, like, you start off as Connor's dad and play basically like 5 or 6 hours as someone that you then just basically ditch, and then you play his son, who has a fifth of the personality, and you go to the sprawling plains of North America. So rather than like jumping and parkouring around through buildings, you're basically like in a field of snow. So it's a pretty weird, jarring thing that they did. And I guess that Ubisoft was trying to, change the formula up, and maybe they got it right in some cases, but they got it wrong in a couple others. So it's a weird kind of game in that sense. Anyway,
released like it just so every Assassin's Creed game is now on both current gen consoles, because obviously it was backwards compatible on Xbox. Now it's on
Yeah.
PlayStation. They already released the Ezio trilogy. So it would just be the original Assassin's Creed, which isn't on PlayStation now, right? I think.
Yeah, I think so. Well, the weird thing about like this is that this has Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, which was the Vita game that was a tie-in to Assassin's Creed 3. So that first came out on Vita. Then it didn't sell very well on Vita, so they called it Assassin's Creed Liberation HD for 360 and PS3.
Yep.
And now they've re-released it again, so it's weird. It's like, I'm not reviewing this in any great deal. Here's like the 3 reviews we've already written for these 2 games, plus the DLC. So there you go.
Well, that's nice. Why don't you tell me about Google Stadia? And since we definitely won't be playing it here, what can we expect other nations to be getting?
After I die. I have this weird cough that will not go away after I've gotten rid of the stupid cold. And I went into the doctor because I know, not the doctor, I went to the pharmacy to get like an inhaler because I know that I just need to like puff on an inhaler for like 3 days and I'll be fine. But she decided instead she wanted to give me echinacea, and I said no. Anyway, that was my weird story and tangent. I'm sorry I'm coughing. Google Stadia is an internet streaming service that requires 25 megabytes down. So that's about 12 more than I have. I think you could probably do it, Ben, but
I could do that.
Well, there you go.
But I can't do that because Google won't be launching in Australia. So. Oh,
that's right. Because hardly anybody has internet that could support it. And I think they know that. So they're just like, bugger it. We're just going to do this in America. It's a cool idea, I guess. About a year ago, they did this weird test with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Ubisoft. And basically, people who did that test could play Odyssey in their browser using a controller of their choice. And I guess we call a lot of things the Netflix of blah, blah, blah. Like Game Pass is the Netflix of getting games, but more like, I guess, the old school Netflix version where you got discs mailed to you, but this is the digital version. Anyway, Stadia, you don't have to download anything. You don't have to have anything but a screen to play a game on. You hit go and instantly you're playing the game and it's all well and good.
The future.
If you have a supported location and enough internet. And then there's some other elements like in terms of streaming. You can instantly hit a button and be on YouTube streaming. You can do save state. So if I click a button and kind of save my progress, I can send you a link, Ben, and you can click the link and instantly pick up playing in that same spot with the same conditions that I had. So there's some neat things to it, but we're never going to see this for one.
Maybe one day. I think the Netflix comparison is interesting because everyone's always going to say that there's for everything. But yeah. Game Pass is mostly old games and Xbox first-party games on there. Google's not going to have a big first-party lineup. So Are we going to pay a subscription? Are we going to have to buy each game? Like, I don't want to spend $100 to buy a game that I play in my browser and can't play if my internet is dodgy. So, yeah. How are they going to structure that from the payment side? Well, the thing with Stadia is that
it only... Sorry to cut you off. It only, works for games that Stadia supports. So, you can do the hit the button on the Stadia thing and, stream it to everybody on YouTube if you really want to. But, if it's not Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Doom Eternal, which is another game that's going to support Stadia, it's not like you can do any of these things just out of the box. So it really depends how many developers take up those kind of things as well.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess. It's probably a while away from being well-formed and beyond those 2 games. Otherwise, they would have shown us a little bit more.
Well, I think it's something that I'd rather see. And there's all these questions okay, well, good, I can't get rid of my Xbox because if I don't have an internet connection for a week, I can't play a video game because I 100% need the internet to get this. It's not like I can, like Netflix style, Ben, download TV shows to watch offline. You need to be online for this. So I don't know if we're quite there yet. The other thing that we could do with half these things, like save state, which actually is a really cool idea. If I come to my Xbox after not playing it for 2 days and I open up the same game that I left off at when I stopped playing 2 days ago, I don't have to reload the game and get into the menus and hit start. The Xbox saves that state for you already. So there's an aspect of that technology that's already kind of incorporated with next gen consoles or current gen consoles. So I'd be surprised if we don't see the likes of Sony and Microsoft kind of doing some of that save state and other Stadia functionality just on their own platforms. And I'm cool.
Well,
I'm cool with that.
Xbox will definitely. So they're probably happy that Google came out and announced first, because they're kind of dripping along tidbits for Project X Cloud, but they haven't really said what it is. All they've said is you'll only need, ideally, I think, what do they say, 10 megabytes, something like that?
They said ideally 10, but they're getting it working on less than 10.
Ooh.
But with that in mind, Google's talking about 25 megabytes down for 4K at 30 frames a second, I think. And they're we should be able to double that soon to get like 8K and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, well,
that'll be good.
Calm down. We don't need that much resolution right now.
That's what I need on my phone, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Microsoft's going with Project X Cloud, which is basically their version of this kind of streaming thing. They're targeting 1080p. They're targeting, playing a game on a phone screen, so they don't need crazy resolution. And they're saying they can do it in less than 10, which, to an Australian who probably has an average of 10, excuse me, perfect.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they're going a different way, because I would have thought that maybe next gen, Xbox might have done what they were originally going to do this generation and use the cloud to kind of beef up the specs of the console, especially later on, because they could keep improving it instead of having an Xbox successor and then a Pro version or an X or whatever they call it, and then another one. They could use their side to keep improving it without having to improve the base hardware. And if your internet drops out or something goes wrong, it could just downgrade again to the standard Xbox version of the game.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're going the other way. They want you to have a powerful console, and the cloud can be used to play at 1080.
Yeah, well, like the weird thing about the Project Cloud server farm, it's not like their normal Azure farm, which has whatever specs kind of PC-wise. They're just using like modified Xbox One S boards for that reason. Like they're not trying to get crazy resolution and all this fancy bells and whistles and that kind of stuff. They're literally just trying to get an Xbox game running in 1080p on a screen.
I suppose they could add it later. They could release the next Xbox and everyone's using their hardware initially, and then 2 years later, instead of releasing an X upgrade, they could say, now our servers, our cloud is improved and can beef up the specs of your Xbox from our end.
Yeah.
It'll cost them a lot to do that, but they could do that.
The weird excuse they had when they were talking about the Project Cloud server farm is they didn't want to use Xbox One X boards as an example, because they wanted to make sure people could buy Xbox One X's without any issue. Like they didn't want to take too much of that market away right now, which I don't know if that's a great reason. It seems kind of laughable. I think Microsoft probably has more Xbox One X's than they know what to do with at this current point in time, but that's what they said. So
that's interesting.
We'll go with that.
Interesting times.
So speaking of games that I don't really care about, Ben, what was announced recently?
Well, you wouldn't have heard it from me, but Borderlands 3 was the big game. I saw Randy Pitchford post a tweet saying he was asked in the security line at an airport saying, do you like Borderlands? Because he was wearing his Borderlands hat. And he said, you could say that. What a nice, relaxed response. He didn't say, hey, I'm Randy. Don't you know who I am?
Would you like me to do a magic trick for you?
Well, that's a good story, actually, but we won't tell that now.
So Borderlands 3.
Heard a lot of people saying, is this 2K's and basically their answer to Destiny and Anthem and The Division? And then a lot of people fight back saying, no, this game's from 2009, which is a fair comment.
Those games were their answer to Borderlands, basically, but not with the 4-player co-op spin. It's a looter shooter. It basically was, well, like Diablo probably is, I don't know if it's a shooter, but Borderlands was one of arguably the original looter shooters.
Absolutely. It was a bit more co-op focused and less kind of always online-y, but yeah, it was an early version of it. And now absolutely it'll borrow off Destiny and maybe not Anthem, but The Division. And we'll see what they come up with, because it has been a while since Borderlands 2, but I've never gotten into any of them in any meaningful way. And considering your Destiny love, I'm surprised you never have.
It's that kind of toilet-y humor, I think, that I just don't appreciate. And it's the same reason why I didn't like Sunset Overdrive as well. Like, I just don't... There's something about the humor that I've experienced in Borderlands that I just can't stand. It just rubs me completely the wrong way, and I just find myself rolling my eyes rather than having fun, if that makes sense. So, and that trailer basically was that for me. So they spent 2 weeks teasing that something was going to be announced at PAX, and eventually they issue this like 3 or 4 minute teaser and then promise more information in a week, which I really am quite sick of, to be honest, Ben. Like, if you're going to announce your game, just do it. But I guess we'll find out more about Borderlands 3 shortly. Maybe Ice-T is going to be in it. Hopefully we'll get the release date.
Yeah, it'll be out this year, I'd say. I think we'll get all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not super excited about it.
Neither. Well, like, maybe it'll surprise us. Maybe it will kind of tick that itch. But yeah, it's I think it's the humor. Like, I like the shooting mechanics at all. It's very competent. That's my like word of the day. But I don't like the humor. I don't think the characters are funny. I don't think it's edgy. It's just kind of just hits me the wrong way.
Well, if you do decide to buy Borderlands 3, you won't be buying it as a digital code on PlayStation from JB Hi-Fi because Sony won't let you anymore.
I suppose not. Which doesn't really bother me, I guess, when I was writing this up, because whatever. If I want to buy a digital game, I would just go to the PlayStation Store where you still can. And as retailers have been very quick to point out, you can still go into a JB or an EB and buy digital gift cards to be used on the PlayStation Store. But what people were telling me, and I didn't really factor this in, is if I wanted to buy you a birthday present, Ben, and you were dead set on Borderlands 3 for Sony PlayStation, if I wanted to really, really personalize my gift and buy you specifically a digital copy of Borderlands 3, there's no current way to gift a game like that on the PlayStation Store.
Oh, that's interesting. So
people are complaining, if you want to take this away, that's fine. But we've been asking for the ability to gift games for years now, and you haven't done that. And I get that argument. It makes sense. You can do it on Xbox. I know you can go and buy a gift card, but it is a little less personal.
Well, actually, I've barely ever seen a digital game in a retailer here. Maybe it's more of a thing in the US. I think I've seen maybe Forza or something on an Xbox card, but I don't recall seeing many games sold like this.
Yeah, I think it is more of like a GameStop thing in America.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because of Australia again. Like, people don't necessarily download digital games as much as perhaps you and I do, just because it's way more convenient for us. But
and also we have I'm pretty sure GameStop launches games at $60 US, and that's just what they are, and that's what they are everywhere. Whereas we kind of have that retail fight where JB says we'll charge $69, and then Big W says no, we'll charge $65 or whatever on disc.
And Harvey Norman says we'll do it for $30, but we won't have any stock.
Damn that. Anyway, if they sold digital copies of those games, I would probably go in and actually make the effort to buy it for $30 cheaper than on the actual PlayStation Store. But they don't, and that's almost definitely why they don't, because they don't want that happening. You can't resell that disc. So there's really no benefit. So if we had that, I could see why people complained about it, but we don't, so it's not really a big deal here, besides the gifting thing.
Well, and I just, apart from gifting, I just can't imagine why anyone would walk into a retailer and say, hello, I would like to buy a code that I then have to go home and input into my console to start downloading. And maybe it's like needing, not having a credit card or something, and that's where people are falling over. But if I want to buy a game, I don't go to a middleman. I will go to the Xbox, go to the store, click on the game, click buy, and I'm done. So, Anyway. You know who's not going to be buying any digital games anytime soon?
Who?
The 350 staff from EA who don't have a job anymore because they've just been laid off. That was really harsh, actually. I feel bad about that.
That was very harsh. That was almost Andrew Wilson level harsh.
Oh, but it was a difficult day, Ben.
Well, it was a difficult day, I'm sure.
That was what he said.
What's his salary these days? He's getting, $5 million, something big?
I think it's I thought it was 31 or something preposterous. But it's facts, Ben. We deal in facts here. He is definitely 100% one of the top 10 overpaid CEOs in a study that was released in the last couple of weeks. So we don't know how much he makes, but he makes a lot, and it's too much apparently. So rather than take a pay cut and try to fix the budget internally, they're just going to lay off 350 staff.
I think we did ascertain somewhere that 350 staff were paid less collectively than he was alone. So that's hard to kind of sell that as a CEO.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think they've had as good of a year as, like, say, Activision, who had some pretty decent profits and then laid off 800 people. But in light of, the EA layoffs, the Activision ones, ArenaNet laid off some staff, like, it's just kind of bad news all around in the last couple months.
Yeah, bad timing.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Nintendo doesn't lay off staff, though. As far as we know. Oh, actually, I do know someone who's been laid off. Never mind.
We just don't hear about it. Who knows what happens in the depths of Nintendo?
Shitty segue, because I do know someone who got laid off. Anyway, not the point. That was a segue to Nintendo, Ben. Take it away while I lick my wounds.
Well, allegedly, Nintendo's going to have 2 new Switches this year. Not 1, but 2 Switches. 3 with the current one, which we presume would get replaced.
It's like
and this isn't really surprising, I don't think.
I don't think so either. Especially from a company who we've seen put out a 3DS, a new 3DS.
It was an annual upgrade with the 3DS.
A new 3DS
There was
XL,
a new one every year.
A 2DS. Yeah.
And they did the same with the DSi and with the Game Boy Advance. It was almost every single year. So we've had 2 years. Switch needs an upgrade, really. It'll be 3 years nearly if they come out later this year. I think the surprise is it's potentially going to be 2 quite different ones. So the rumors are there's going to be one smaller one which focuses on being a handheld, cheaper to replace the 3DS, which does make sense because that's really at the end of its life. Now that pretty much everything's out, I don't think we're going to get any more 3DS announcements.
I lost my 3DS charger and I can't be bothered even trying to find a replacement and put any power through it. I think I'm just going to throw it out or take it into EB and be like, I promise it works. Just give me like $20 for it.
Yeah, you'd be lucky to get that.
Probably.
The other side is a pro version of or basically a new 3DS style, new Switch. So in a slightly improved version, I think everyone just wants a better battery, maybe better Wi-Fi, because if I move, my phone and my laptop into my bedroom, they're fine. They still have full bars, and my Switch is like, no, too far away. So it's obviously got a dodgy Wi-Fi chip in it.
I think I think they fixed the Bluetooth stuff in the Joy-Cons, but like a revision like this gives them the opportunity to fix those things to get cheaper parts that probably are better compared to what the original are, so that you bring manufacturing costs down, you beef it up a little bit. It's kind of win-win.
Well, it sounds like it won't be much. So the new 3DS was used by, I think, 2 games that could only be played on it. I don't think we'll see anything which is new Switch exclusive.
Yeah.
But no other games really used it at all. Like, you wanted some more games to use new 3DS just to say, here's a slight increase, and no one really bothered with that. So the problem here is we're going to need games to work on Switch Portable, Switch Docked, which often changes the resolution and sometimes frame rate and general performance. Then we're going to need a new Switch version. So developers are making 3, potentially 4 if that runs different handheld and docked. So it will be interesting to see if they can actually get other developers besides them. Even if first-party studios didn't do it on new 3DS, why would anyone else on regular Switch? So yeah, I'm a bit concerned by the potential 4 types of game.
I'm trying not to cough, and maybe I missed it, but did you mention that the budget Switch may not even have the ability to dock or connect to a TV?
I did not. I think it certainly wouldn't come with a dock because that would shave off some costs. I think it would be weird to stop the Switch's switching feature. Having said that, they took the 3D out of 3DS, so they're not opposed to taking out the main feature.
Very true.
I see what they're doing, though. They're trying to make the 2DS... Remember the original 2DS, which couldn't be broken, basically?
Yeah, I didn't try to break it, but it looked like a brick, basically.
I think they're going for that. They're going for kids. They want it to be cheap. They want it to be people who want to chuck it in their pocket. So I think it'll be smaller. And maybe it doesn't need to be TV compatible. So it would also give the more premium model a reason to upgrade. Like, if you can still dock this cheaper Switch, why spend an extra 100 or 200 on the premium model just because it has better Wi-Fi and a slightly bigger screen? People won't do that. If you want to play on TV and you need the better one, that's a reason to buy it. So I think they're not necessarily taking it out as a cost-saving measure. It might be a function-saving measure so they can charge more for the better model.
Yeah.
Potentially.
No, I agree with that. Shall we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Something that is cool, and I guess I should have really organized this news a bit better, Ben. It's not a competitor to Google Stadia, but it also is something that will work in Australia straight away because there's no like weird tech limitations. Apple announced a whole bunch of things in the last week or so, but one of them was game related in the form of Apple Arcade, which is an arcade subscription service that will offer a library of about 100 games across iOS devices, so iPad, iPhone, Mac, laptops, or desktops. I don't know why I was very specific about laptops, and the Apple TV. So it's like Game Pass, I suppose, but for Apple's ecosystem. So I don't know if there's a lot of games that I would actually play myself, but it's kind of good news for more casual players or people with kids that they want to just kind of like play with your iPad and get out of my face for a bit type thing.
Well, Apple is clearly moving to a subscription-based model. I think they're doing an Apple TV app for other things, so not the Apple TV, which probably means you're going to be able to play this on your smart TV as well, or maybe even, I don't think we're going to get an Apple TV app on consoles, but potentially if they really want people to subscribe, they realize it has to move on beyond their own hardware, and that's what Tim Cook's doing, and whether that works or not, we'll wait and see. Personally, I'm not going to subscribe because I already decided I have too many subscriptions. So in breaking news, I'm letting my PlayStation Plus lapse next month because I just never use it.
I think I think I'm right there with you.
Well, I did a little bit of a stock take on how many subscriptions I have. So take away the real life thing. So forget like gym and road service and all that. That's a different kettle of subscriptions.
Yeah, digital
just
subscriptions.
Digital entertainment. So what do I have? I have Xbox Live, Xbox Game Pass. I think those two go well together because I do most of my multiplayer gaming on Xbox. Actually, all of it.
It's because I make you, but yeah, fair call.
And the achievements and the much better control. Anyway, we won't get stuck in this. And I play the Game Pass games a lot more than the games with Gold or PlayStation Plus for a couple of reasons. I think they're generally better. And if I leave my subscription and I come back in 6 months, I can still play all the games on there. Whether on the other two, you've got to effectively buy them for $0 every month. So you can't play the stuff that you didn't get when you weren't subscribed, if that makes sense, which is kind of off-putting.
Correct. And the thing about that right now is that they're not good games. It's been so long into the life cycle, like all the kind of games that you would be excited for as part of the Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus have already been, released, or, you're just getting kind of garbagey things now.
Yeah, so there's those two. There's two on Xbox already. There's the Nintendo Switch Online, which is pretty cheap, but I don't know if I'll keep that. It depends if they beef it up. Although I will, because I got a free month through another subscription, which is Amazon Prime.
There you go.
It gives you a free year of Switch. I only have that, to be honest, for the Grand Tour, but I guess I'll keep that now to get my extra 9 months of Switch Online and maybe to buy some toothpaste with free shipping. So there's a small perk.
And depending on what you play, like I got some Apex Legends goodies, and so
that's through the Twitch Prime, which is connected to it. So yeah, there is stuff there,
and free shipping on things if you decide to buy things from Amazon. Yeah, like there's enough with the Prime. I think that's a good call, Ben.
That's one. Then I have all the video streaming. So I have Netflix, I have Stan, and Amazon. So 3. I have KO Sports, which is a sports streaming recently launched in Australia. The most expensive of the lot, but much cheaper than Foxtel. But when I used to pay $60 a month 5 years ago to have Foxtel and Sport when we thought that was expensive. But when you add up all these things together again, I'm well over that. Plus the game subscriptions. I'm sure there are a few others I've forgotten. So it's too many things. Something had to go. PlayStation Plus, I decided, was the most useless to me at the moment because I never use it. I've actually just played a few games on PlayStation with it because I thought I should try them before I leave them. And there's so many little indie games I got through it, and I just don't know what they are. Like, you start playing for 10 minutes, and a lot of them have all this backstory for their pixel art, whatever it is. And I'm sure some of them are great, but a lot of them aren't very welcoming for, you've got 10 minutes to capture me, especially the ones that have, I check the trophies. Anything that has like an 80% people got this, I assume that's happening in the first 5 to 10 minutes, so I'll give it a crack to that point. The ones that have like the best trophy is 2% and everything else is like 0.5%, I don't understand why you would do that.
No, I agree.
People will say you shouldn't play the games for the trophies or the achievements, but absolutely, when you've got so many PlayStation Plus games, it's a reason to try some of them. So,
well, and it's just how you prefer to play some games. That's like not exclusively, obviously, but I play video games for achievements, and if I have to play something, I'll try to play on Xbox because of that very reason. And I think that's as legit as any other reason that someone plays something.
So, yes, to wind back to Apple Arcade, another subscription is not in my good books because I have too many already. Had to cut back. And they kind of sneak up on you. You buy them, especially these ones like Xbox and Game Pass that you pay for in a year. You kind of pay for it and you forget. But if you really add it all up, everyone's saying that cable cutting was the future. We're actually paying more again. And people are starting to notice this and realize it's a bit of a joke that we're spending hundreds of dollars a month on all these subscriptions. It was meant to be cheaper, but...
Well, and it's only getting worse. Like, especially if you were in America. So, well, I guess Stan and Hulu maybe cancel each other out, but Disney's planning its streaming app. There's CBS All Access. If I wanted to watch Star Trek, it's not on Netflix in America. It's in CBS All Access. And I guess there's 10 All Access here. So I think, we're almost 1-to-1. And, I would watch Titans. I love my DC. So there's the DC Universe streaming service that I'd have to get. It's just getting to the point where every decent property is trying to be like the headliner of whatever media empire's streaming service, and it's just it's not feasible to own every single one. So
no,
something that I'm annoyed with Star Trek is that it's not the best quality, and Star Trek to me has always been like fairly like highbrow, like social commentary kind of content. And because CBS want people to get the CBS All Access app, they've done one Star Trek show, and as soon as that season ended, people were canceling their subscriptions. So then they went, okay, well, we'll bring back Patrick Stewart and we'll do another Star Trek with him, and we'll do this one with Michelle Yeoh, and they've got like 20 Star Trek franchises just like randomly sprouting out of the ground to get people to keep their subscription year round. And it kind of makes me worried that it's the same like core group of people like running these shows and scripting these shows and planning these shows, that they're just gonna start tanking because the quality's so bad, and they're being made almost with the specific purpose of just trying to keep people subscribed to a streaming service, which is
and this is
depressing.
Gonna keep happening to games as it has to video, basically, because with Xbox has 2 subscriptions, 2 which I'm happy with now, but I've ditched PlayStation basically to have the 2 of those. If I wanted to have both, no doubt PlayStation will copy this. I know they have PlayStation Now in the US. They'll probably try and get in a Game Pass style thing next gen. Nintendo's already said they're looking at a second subscription for more pro gamers. So if the $30 a year online and NES game subscription is the basic one, presumably the other one will have more Virtual Console or something.
Oh man, can you work on your online offerings first before you decide to do a second subscription, please?
Games only.
Well, and Microsoft said that Project X Cloud is likely going to be a subscription service as well, and it's going to be tied to Game Pass. So,
I think that's smarter. But I can't have
that's
3
another
Xbox
one. That's a third one.
3 is too many. They need to add it in at current cost, basically. Even if they said Game Pass is going up by 30%, but it will include Project X Cloud, I could almost stomach that more than them saying it's an add-on for it. It's getting too confusing for one.
I'd be happy with them lumping Xbox Live and Game Pass together and charging a bit more for it. I think that's fine. They kind of go part and parcel anyway. Yeah,
potentially. Well, then you'd cancel out games with gold, so potentially that saves them a little bit of money on that, so they can kind of roll in Game Pass as the future version of that.
And it's cool to see that Microsoft is kind of... I know every company is, but I feel like Microsoft's really future-proofing. And we didn't hear, that they're putting Xbox Live on every single platform ever, like we were hoping they might say at GDC. But we did get confirmation that Cuphead is coming to Switch, and it will.
It's very exciting.
With not like Xbox Live so much, but achievement support, which is pretty good, I think.
It's the type of game Switch doesn't really have. I mean, they have a lot of kind of platformers and side scrollers, but they don't have that Cuphead style, real challenging, brutal game. And people love it because it's a great game, Cuphead. And I'm terrible at it. I don't know about you.
I'm not great.
But I still enjoyed it. We talked about Sekiro briefly earlier, and I just can't get into that. But despite being terrible at Cuphead, I still enjoyed the challenge of it. And I think it would be great as a handheld game because I could never play for more than about 20 minutes. So I think picking it up, having a go, as long as I don't throw it across the room, it'll work really well.
I agree. And I guess the weird thing I've been seeing is people are kind of criticizing Microsoft for letting Studio MDHR, I don't know if that's the right combination of those letters, but it is the right letters, like take an Xbox exclusive and move it to Nintendo Switch. But like, I don't think I care so much. One, Switch players will eat anything up. If it came out, 1 year or 5 years ago for a different platform, they don't care. They just want it. And two, I think it's kind of actually showing Microsoft's new strategy of, it's on Switch, but obviously they're getting a cut somehow because it has achievements in it. So I don't know how it's working in terms of publishing, but they must have their fingers in that pie a little bit. So
yeah, definitely.
It doesn't have to be an exclusive anymore. It just has to be in the Xbox ecosystem. And I think that's a good idea.
Well, and the biggest franchise that Xbox own is Minecraft, and that's on every platform ever. Yeah. Granted, it was before they bought it, but they've, even since acquiring it, they've released it on things like Switch. So they're not adverse to doing that. We're not going to get a Halo on Switch, but they've clearly decided that Nintendo's a partner worth working with. It's going to be one way. So these people are saying, Cuphead comes to Switch, and I guess that means Mario Kart's coming to Xbox. That's not happening. Nintendo is accepting an offer. They're not putting up anything themselves, I don't think, at any point.
Yeah.
But it probably works for both parties. So.
Oh, it does. And it makes them look good, just like, offering crossplay options between Xbox and PC and PS or Switch looks good. And, Sony's kind of like, oh, we're sort of including it in things now. It's like, well, you're not really. You're still being difficult. You're being Sony. So there's kind of like that reputation building on both sides of this. I think it's a smart move, and I think people are excited to play Cuphead on the go. So,
absolutely. And that's about everything for this episode, I think. We've gone over our allocated 40 minutes, but only just.
We'll have to try better next time. There was a lot of news, actually. It was really bad, we put out the podcast as Google Stadia was announced. So, good timing on our part, Ben.
Absolutely.
So
we'll be back in roughly 2 weeks. We're a fortnightly show now.
Definitely.
When it works out for us.
Fortnightly * show.
Hopefully.
Thanks for joining us. Go to Stevivor. You can find my stuff, Ben's stuff. You can find our social media links. That's it. # SFriendlyFire Show. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.